My mother-in-law, Vera, stood in my living room, pointing her trembling finger at me while tears streamed down her face. "You killed him. You murdered my son for the insurance money." The detective beside her shifted uncomfortably, his notepad ready. My 8-year-old son, Colby, tugged at my sleeve. "Mommy, should I tell them about the medicine Grandma Vera put in Daddy's coffee every morning when she visited?" The room went silent. Vera's tears stopped instantly. Detective Bryant looked between us, his pen frozen above his notepad. The afternoon light streaming through our living room windows seemed too bright for this moment, too normal for the accusation hanging in the air. Vera's face had gone from grief-stricken to something else entirely. Fear? Rage? I couldn't tell anymore. "What medicine, son?" Detective Bryant asked gently, kneeling down to Colby's level. My boy, still wearing his Spider-Man pajamas because I hadn't had the strength to get him dressed properly since Jerome died 5 days ago, looked up at me for permission. "Tell him the truth, baby," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. "Just like Daddy always taught you, the truth is always right." Vera stepped forward aggressively. "Don't you dare poison my grandson against me. This woman is manipulating him, Detective. She's coached him to lie." Her voice had lost its earlier sorrow, replaced by something sharp and desperate. "Ma'am, please step back," Detective Bryant said firmly, standing up to his full height. He was younger than I'd expected when he'd first shown up at my door, maybe early 30s, with kind eyes that seemed genuinely interested in finding the truth rather than just closing a case. Colby pressed closer to me, his small hand gripping mine. "Grandma said it was special medicine to help Daddy not be so tired. She brought it in a little brown bottle and mixed it in his coffee every Wednesday when she came for breakfast. She told me it was our secret, that Mommy wouldn't understand because she didn't love Daddy the way Grandma did." The words tumbled out of my son's mouth like water breaking through a dam. Each syllable landed in the room with the weight of stones. I felt Vera's stare burning into me, but I kept my eyes on my son, encouraging him with gentle pressure from my hand. "She said Daddy needed it because he was working too hard," Colby continued, his voice getting smaller. "She said Mommy was making him sick with stress because she wanted to move us away to California. But Daddy didn't know about California, did he, Mommy? You hadn't told him yet." My blood ran cold. I'd only discussed the job offer with my sister Roxanne, and only over the phone when I thought no one was listening. But Vera had been in my house so often lately, always appearing at odd hours with casseroles and concerns, always insisting on helping with laundry or cleaning, always finding reasons to be in every room. "Vera," I said, turning to face her fully for the first time since this nightmare began. "How did you know about California?" She straightened her spine, lifting her chin with the same defiant pride I'd seen so many times over the 11 years I'd been married to her son. "A mother has a right to know when someone's planning to steal her child away." "Steal?" The word came out as a whisper. Jerome was 36 years old. He was my husband, Colby's father. We were a family. "I was his family first," Vera snapped, her carefully maintained composure finally cracking. "I raised him alone after his father died. I sacrificed everything for that boy. My career, my social life, any chance at remarrying, everything. And then you came along with your pretty smile and your piano lessons, and suddenly my son barely had time for Sunday dinners." Detective Bryant was writing furiously now, his earlier casual stance replaced with sharp attention. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm going to need you to come down to the station to give a formal statement about these medicines you were giving your son." "Vitamins!" Vera practically screamed. "They were natural supplements. This woman is twisting everything because she knows I'm onto her. Check her browser history, Detective. Check her finances. $2 million in life insurance, and she's pretending she didn't know my son was worth more dead than alive." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. But before I could respond, Colby's young voice cut through the chaos again. "Grandma, why did you tell me Daddy would get really sick but then get better and need you to take care of him? You said that's what happened to Grandpa before he died. You said sometimes people need to get worse before they understand who really loves them." The silence that followed was deafening. Jerome and I had been married for 11 years, and despite what his mother believed, we were genuinely happy. He worked as a regional manager for a furniture company, traveling twice a month to oversee stores across Georgia and Alabama. I taught piano lessons from our home in suburban Atlanta, converting our formal dining room into a studio where the sound of scales and sonatas filled our afternoons. Every Sunday, Vera would drive 40 minutes from her condo to have dinner with us, arriving precisely at 4 o'clock with her homemade apple pie and a collection of subtle criticisms disguised as helpful suggestions. "Daphne never cooks right," she'd tell Jerome while I stood right there, serving the pot roast I'd spent 3 hours preparing. "Remember how I used to make yours? With the special gravy? I'd brown the meat first, then slow cook it for 5 hours with my secret blend of herbs." Jerome would squeeze my hand under the table, his silent apology for his mother's constant comparisons. But I understood. Vera had raised him alone since he was 16, after his father's sudden death from a heart attack, and letting go was impossible for her. Our life had settled into predictable rhythms that felt comfortable, like a favorite sweater you reach for without thinking. Jerome left for work at 7:30 sharp every morning, his routine so precise you could set your watch by it. First, he'd check his emails while eating toast with strawberry jam, exactly 2 slices. Then he'd review his schedule for the day, kiss Colby on the forehead, and press his lips to mine with a tenderness that still made my heart flutter after all these years. "Love you both," he'd say, grabbing his travel mug of coffee from the counter, the same blue mug Colby had painted for him at a Father's Day craft event when he was 5. The Wednesday visit started 6 months ago. Vera had called one evening, her voice unusually sweet. "I've been thinking, Daphne. Jerome works so hard, and I know mornings are rushed for you with getting Colby ready for school. What if I came by Wednesday mornings to help with breakfast, just to take something off your plate?" I should have recognized the calculated timing, but I was juggling 3 new piano students and appreciated what seemed like a genuine offer of help. "You're lucky to have me," she'd say every single Wednesday, reorganizing my spice cabinet for the 100th time, arranging everything alphabetically even though I preferred grouping by cuisine type. "Jerome needs his family around. A mother knows what's best for her son. These store-bought vitamins you buy are useless, by the way. I'll bring him some real supplements from my naturopath. Dr. Harrison is brilliant, trained in Europe, understands nutrition in ways American doctors simply don't." Her presence filled our kitchen like too much perfume, overwhelming and impossible to ignore. She'd rearrange my cooking utensils, commenting that her system was more efficient. She'd inspect the refrigerator, noting which vegetables looked tired, which leftovers should be thrown out, how I really should be buying organic milk for Colby even though it cost twice as much. Jerome would escape to work, leaving me to navigate the next hour of passive-aggressive territory alone. My sister Roxanne would call me after Vera's visits, her voice tight with frustration on my behalf. "Why do you let her walk all over you? She's in your house, criticizing everything you do, acting like Jerome is still her baby instead of your husband." "Because Jerome loves his mother," I'd reply, folding laundry while we talked, finding comfort in the familiar routine. "And I love Jerome. It's just breakfast once a week. What harm can it do? She lost her husband young, raised Jerome alone. This is all she has." "You're too nice," Roxanne would say. "Mark my words, that woman is going to escalate. She's not helping you out of kindness. She's marking her territory, reminding you that she was there first." I dismissed my sister's warnings as overprotective big sister syndrome. Roxanne had always been the fighter in our family, ready to battle any perceived threat, while I preferred keeping the peace. Besides, Jerome was happy having his mother around more. He'd been worried about her living alone, especially after she'd had a minor fall in her bathroom last year. No serious injuries, but it had shaken him. "She's getting older," he'd told me one night as we lay in bed. "I know she can be difficult, but she's my mom. She gave up everything for me after Dad died. She could have remarried, had a life of her own, but she chose to focus on raising me instead." The guilt in his voice was heavy, a burden he'd carried since adolescence. I pulled him closer, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne. "We'll take care of her," I promised. "Always." 3 weeks before Jerome died, he started complaining about fatigue that seemed different from his usual end-of-day tiredness. I can barely keep my eyes open during meetings, he told me one Tuesday night, rubbing his temples as we sat at the kitchen table after dinner. I had to pull over twice on the drive home just to splash water on my face. It's like someone's drugging me. The words hung in the air, innocent then, sinister in retrospect. Maybe you need vitamins, Vera suggested during her Wednesday visit, appearing in our kitchen doorway with perfect timing, as if she'd been listening. I brought some from my naturopath, Dr. Harrison, all natural, very expensive. But nothing's too good for my boy. They're specifically formulated for men in their 30s who work too much and don't get enough rest. She produced a brown bottle from her purse, unlabeled except for handwritten instructions that said 1 teaspoon daily. She started adding the powder to his morning coffee without asking, just stirring it in while chatting about the weather, the news, anything except what she was doing. Completely tasteless, she assured Jerome when he questioned it the first time. You'll feel like a new man in a week. Dr. Harrison guarantees it, or your money back. Well, my money back since I'm paying for it. The fatigue got worse instead of better. Jerome started having dizzy spells that made no sense for a healthy 36-year-old man. I found him gripping the bathroom counter one morning, knuckles white, face pale and sweaty. The room won't stop spinning, he said, his voice thick with fear. Maybe it's an inner ear infection. We should see a doctor, I insisted, already reaching for my phone to call Dr. Morrison's office. Nonsense, Vera interrupted, appearing in our bedroom doorway. She'd let herself in with the spare key again, arriving earlier than usual. Doctors just want to prescribe pills that cause more problems than they solve. My supplements need time to work. The body has to purge toxins before it can heal. Trust your mother, Jerome. Have I ever led you wrong? The question hung between them, loaded with years of single-parent devotion and sacrifice. Jerome's shoulders sagged in defeat. Maybe another week, he conceded, and I watched my husband choose his mother's certainty over his body's clear distress signals. Then came the night sweats that soaked through our sheets, leaving Jerome shivering and exhausted. His heart would race for no reason, pounding so hard I could feel it when I placed my hand on his chest. It's like I've run a marathon, he gasped one night at 2 a.m, but I've just been lying here. The breaking point came when I found Jerome collapsed in the shower, conscious but weak, water still running over his trembling body. Hospital, now, I said, wrapping him in towels, my hands shaking as I tried to help him stand. But Vera had already arrived for an unexpected evening visit, letting herself in just as I was getting Jerome to the bedroom. He just needs rest, she insisted, pushing past me to take over, her movements practiced and efficient. You're overreacting, Daphne, as usual. Drama doesn't help anyone. Jerome needs calm, familiar care, not some emergency room where they'll run unnecessary tests and charge thousands of dollars for nothing. Mom, please, Jerome whispered from where he lay on our bed, his skin gray and clammy. Daphne might be right. This doesn't feel normal. Vera's face darkened like a storm cloud forming. Her whole body went rigid, and when she spoke, her voice was low and dangerous. After everything I've done for you, everything I've sacrificed, the years I spent alone, turning down dates, refusing job promotions that would have meant travel, all so I could be there for every soccer game, every school play, every moment you needed me? And now you're going to side with her. This woman who's known you for barely a decade compared to my 36 years? She stormed out, but not before reminding Jerome she'd be back Wednesday morning with more supplements. Double dose, she said from the doorway. Dr. Harrison says that's what you need when your body is being stubborn about healing. That night, Jerome held my hand in bed with a grip that felt desperate. His palm was clammy, and I could feel his pulse fluttering irregularly where our wrists touched. If anything happens to me, promise you'll take care of Colby. Make sure he knows how much I love him, and be patient with Mom. She means well. She just doesn't know how to let go. I kissed his forehead, tasting salt from the fever that wouldn't break. Nothing's going to happen. We're seeing Dr. Morrison tomorrow, no matter what your mother says. Your health comes first. I love you, Daphne, he said, and something in his voice made it sound like goodbye. Tomorrow never came. By 3 a.m, the man I loved was gone. I woke at 3 a.m. to stillness that felt wrong before my mind could process why. The absence of Jerome's breathing, usually steady and rhythmic beside me, created a vacuum in the darkness. My hand reached for his chest, finding it motionless and cold. The scream that tore from my throat brought Colby running, his small feet pattering down the hallway. But I managed to intercept him at our bedroom door, pulling him against me before he could see his father's still form. The paramedics pronounced Jerome dead at 3:47 a.m. Heart failure, they said initially, their faces professionally neutral as they filled out paperwork on my kitchen table. Unusual for someone his age, but it happens. We're very sorry for your loss. They packed up their equipment with practiced efficiency while I stood there in my pajamas, holding Colby, feeling like the world had shifted off its axis. Vera arrived at my house within an hour before I'd even called her. She burst through the front door using her key, wailing loud enough to wake the entire neighborhood. "I had a feeling," she sobbed, collapsing into my arms with a force that nearly knocked me backward. A mother knows. A mother always knows when her baby is gone. But through her dramatic tears, she kept asking strange questions that cut through my shock. Did he say anything about the insurance? About the will? Did he leave any letters? Sometimes people know when their time is coming. The police arrived that afternoon, and I discovered Vera had called them herself. She stood in my living room, my husband not even cold yet, pointing an accusatory finger at me. My daughter-in-law had a $2 million life insurance policy on my son, she told Detective Bryant, her voice steady and clear despite her red-rimmed eyes. She's been pushing him to work longer hours, causing stress. She probably poisoned him. Check her computer. Check her search history. You'll find evidence, I guarantee it. That's insane, I shouted, Colby clinging to my side, his face buried in my hip. You're the one who kept giving him those supplements. Every Wednesday, that brown bottle with no label, mixing powder into his coffee while telling him it would make him feel better. Natural vitamins, Vera screamed back, her composure cracking. From a certified naturopath, while you probably slipped something into his food when I wasn't here to protect him. I know you were having problems. Jerome told me you'd been fighting about money, about your credit card debt, about the mortgage. We hadn't been fighting about any of those things. Our finances were stable, comfortable even. But I realized Vera had been constructing a narrative, building her case against me for longer than I'd understood. Detective Bryant separated us, his voice calm but firm. Ladies, I need to take statements from both of you, separately. He looked at Colby, then back at me. Is there someone who can take your son for a few hours? Roxanne arrived within 20 minutes, her face set in hard lines as she surveyed the scene. She took in Vera's theatrical grief, the detective's presence, the way neighbors had gathered on their porches to watch the drama unfold. Don't say anything without a lawyer, she whispered as she gathered Colby's overnight bag. Vera's lost it completely. I'm calling my friend, who's a defense attorney. The house became a crime scene over the next few hours. They bagged Jerome's coffee mug, the one with "World's Best Dad" printed on it. They took his medications from the bathroom cabinet, the vitamins from the kitchen counter, even random food from our refrigerator. Each evidence bag felt like another piece of my life being packaged and labeled, reduced to potential exhibits in a case I couldn't believe was happening. Vera stood on my front lawn, holding court with anyone who would listen. She killed my baby boy, she told Mrs. Patterson from next door. For money, $2 million. I always knew she wasn't good enough for him. She trapped him with that pregnancy 11 years ago, and now she's cashed out. By evening, I'd made my decision. I sat across from my newly hired attorney, Patricia Winters, in her downtown office that smelled of leather and coffee. I want a complete autopsy with extensive toxicology screening, I told her. Test everything. Every substance in his body, and I want those supplements Vera brought tested too. Patricia made notes in precise handwriting. We'll need to move fast. Do you have any of these supplements? No, I said, my stomach sinking. Vera always took the bottle with her, said it was expensive and she kept it refrigerated at home between visits. Convenient, Patricia muttered, but we'll petition for a search warrant for her residence. If she was giving him something regularly, there should be traces in her home. She called the police on me, I said, still barely believing it. My husband is dead, and instead of grieving together, she's trying to frame me for murder. Patricia looked up from her notes. Sometimes the guilty party points the loudest finger. We're going to find out exactly what was in those supplements. The autopsy results took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of Vera posting on Facebook about her murdered son and the black widow who killed him. 2 weeks of neighbors avoiding eye contact when I walked to the mailbox. 2 weeks of Colby asking when Daddy was coming home and why Grandma was so angry. 2 weeks of Roxanne staying at my house because the whispers had gotten so bad I was afraid to be alone. Detective Bryant called me to the station on a Thursday morning. Patricia drove me there, her presence steady and reassuring as we walked through the police station's fluorescent-lit hallways. Vera was already there in the conference room, tissue in hand, dabbing at her eyes for an audience of 2 officers. She'd dressed in all black, playing the grieving mother perfectly, down to the pearl necklace Jerome had given her for Christmas last year. "Mrs. Daphne," Detective Bryant began, opening a folder thick with documents. "The toxicology report shows your husband had fatal levels of digitalis in his system." "Digitalis?" I asked, the word unfamiliar and frightening. "It's a heart medication derived from the foxglove plant," he explained, pulling out a detailed chart. "In small doses, it treats heart conditions. In large doses, it causes exactly the symptoms your husband experienced: fatigue, dizziness, heart palpitations, visual disturbances, and eventually heart failure. The levels in your husband's system were 3 times what would be considered therapeutic." Vera jumped up from her chair so fast it scraped against the floor. "See? She poisoned him. Arrest her. I told you she did it for the insurance money." "Actually," Detective Bryant continued, his voice steady, "we found something interesting in our investigation. Mrs. Vera, you've been receiving prescriptions for digitalis for the past year, for a heart condition you never disclosed to anyone, including your son." The color drained from Vera's face like water from a sink. Her mouth opened and closed without sound. "That's my private medical business." "It becomes police business when the same medication killed your son," he replied, pulling out more documents. "We also reviewed security footage from the 3 pharmacies near your home. You refilled your prescription 9 times last month, claiming you'd lost the medication or had it stolen. That's 9 times the normal amount. Each pharmacist noted your insistence that you needed it urgently." I stood up slowly, my legs shaking as pieces clicked together like a horrible puzzle. "The supplements. The powder you put in his coffee every Wednesday. You can't prove anything!" Vera shouted, her carefully maintained composure finally shattering completely. "Those vitamins are gone. I threw them out when Jerome died." Detective Bryant pulled out his phone and showed a video. "We found this in your trash, Mrs. Morrison. Our warrant allowed us to search your disposed items." The screen showed a brown bottle being retrieved from a garbage bag, powder still visible inside. The lab confirmed it's digitalis, crushed and mixed with protein powder. That's when Colby, who Roxanne had just brought to the station for his scheduled interview, spoke up from the doorway. "Grandma, remember when you told me it was our secret? The special medicine you put in Daddy's coffee? You said it would make him need you more, so he wouldn't move away with Mommy to California for her new job." The room froze. I hadn't even told Jerome about the job offer yet, had only mentioned it to Roxanne during a private phone call. But Vera had been listening at doors, going through our mail, building her plan. "You said if Daddy got sick," Colby continued, his innocent voice cutting through the silence, "he'd have to stay home and you could take care of him forever, like when he was little and had the flu and needed you to feed him soup and read him stories." Patricia grabbed my hand under the table as I struggled to breathe. My 8-year-old son had been carrying this secret, this burden, while his father died. Vera's mask finally cracked completely, her face twisting into something unrecognizable. "I wasn't trying to kill him, just make him need me again. He was going to leave me, move across the country. I'm his mother. I gave up everything for him, my career, my life, my chance at happiness. He owed me his presence." "You killed him," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You killed your own son because you couldn't let him live his own life." "It was supposed to just make him weak," Vera screamed. "Weak enough to stay home, to need his mother. Dr. Harrison said small doses would just cause dependency, not death. But Jerome was stubborn, just like his father, fighting the medicine instead of accepting it. Detective Bryant stood, hand on his handcuffs. There is no Dr. Harrison. We checked. You made him up. Vera Morrison, you're under arrest for the murder of Jerome Morrison. As they led her away, she looked at me with pure hatred. This is your fault. If you hadn't tried to take him from me, none of this would have happened. A mother's love is sacred, and you destroyed it. Vera was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 15 years in prison. Her lawyer argued she never intended to kill Jerome, just make him dependent on her. The jury didn't buy it. The truth was she'd been slowly poisoning her own son for 3 months, increasing the dose each week when he didn't respond the way she wanted. The prosecutor showed the court her purchase history, 9 bottles of digitalis obtained through prescription fraud, enough to kill several people. I found her journal during the estate cleanup, hidden in a box of Jerome's baby clothes she'd been storing in our attic without my knowledge. Pages and pages of cramped handwriting detailed her descent into obsession. Jerome called twice this week instead of 3 times. One entry read, "That woman is stealing him from me, minute by minute, day by day." Another entry, dated just a month before she started poisoning him, said, "If he's sick, he'll see that only Mother truly cares for him. Daphne will get frustrated with the burden, and I'll be there to pick up the pieces, just like when he had pneumonia in 3rd grade." The most chilling entry was from the week before Jerome died. "Increase the dose again. He's fighting it, stubborn like his father was before his heart attack, but he'll understand soon that Mother knows best. Mother always knows best." Colby and I moved to California anyway, taking the job I'd been offered at a prestigious music conservatory. He's in therapy twice a week, working through the guilt of keeping Grandma's secret and the trauma of losing his father. "It's not your fault," I tell him every day, holding him close when the nightmares come. "Grandma was sick in a different way, a way that made her do terrible things. You were just a little boy trying to love everyone." His therapist, Dr. Chen, told me it might take years for Colby to fully process what happened. "Children often blame themselves when adults involve them in secrets," she explained. "He needs to understand that adults are responsible for their own choices, not 8-year-olds. My sister Roxanne visits monthly, flying in from Atlanta to help us build our new life. She helped us find a house near the beach, nothing fancy, but with a music room where I can teach and a backyard where Colby can play. Jerome would want you to be happy," she says, and I know she's right. But some nights, I still wake at 3 a.m., reaching for a hand that isn't there, wondering how a mother's love could become so twisted that it killed the very person she claimed to protect. The insurance money sits untouched in a trust for Colby's education, $2 million that I can't bring myself to spend, knowing it became the weapon Vera used to try to destroy me while covering her own crime. The irony isn't lost on me that she accused me of murdering Jerome for money while she murdered him for love, or what she thought was love. Real love doesn't destroy. It doesn't possess. It doesn't kill. Last week, Colby asked if we could visit Grandma in prison. "Maybe when you're older," I said, though I honestly don't know if that day will ever come. How do you explain to a child that sometimes the people who claim to love us the most are the ones capable of the greatest harm? That sometimes protection becomes possession and care becomes control? The neighbors who once whispered "Black Widow" now send Christmas cards with apologies written inside. Mrs. Patterson wrote me a long letter about how sorry she was for believing Vera's lies. "I should have known better," she wrote. "You were always such a devoted wife and mother. But the damage was done. I couldn't stay in that house, on that street, in that city where Jerome's ghost lived in every corner. The truth set me free, but it didn't bring Jerome back. It just revealed that the real poison in our lives had been there all along, disguised as a mother's devotion, dissolved in morning coffee, served with a smile and a promise that Mother knows best." Vera had 36 years to learn how to let go of her son, to let him live his own life, to love him without consuming him. Instead, she chose to kill him rather than lose him. Sometimes, Mother knows worst. I've started dating again, tentatively, a fellow teacher at the conservatory who makes Colby laugh and doesn't mind that some nights I cry for no reason. Jerome would want us to move forward, to find happiness, to live the life he couldn't. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about the relationships in your own life, please like this video and share it with others who might need to hear it. Your comments mean everything, so please share your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that explore the complicated truth of human nature. Sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who claim to love us most.